According to the National Institute of Health, 1 out of every 10 adults will experience plantar fasciitis. It is one of the most common sources of foot pain. There are numerous theories on the causes and treatments, but for many people, it's a constant source of pain and struggle. Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm your host, Heather McKean, and today we are covering the emotional drivers behind plantar fasciitis. Like many of the conditions I cover, I personally had this diagnosis. I tried all kinds of treatments, therapies, orthotics over the years, and tried to address the pain that I was feeling. And for me, as I began addressing the drivers and the experiences that had fueled my countless other more serious conditions, then without even working on it, the foot pain also eventually disappeared. And this is actually quite common with mind change work, because when we're working on healing our past negative experiences, limiting beliefs, past traumas, then we can heal from things that we didn't even think we're working on. And it's one of the things that we like to call positive side effects. So in preparing for this episode, I came across something I found fascinating. Plantar fasciitis has also in the past been known as policeman's heel, due to the number of policemen that suffered from the condition. Now you might think this has something to do with the amount of time that police or a police officer spends on their feet. But if you think about it, there are many other careers that have people spending much more time on their feet. So I think this actually has much more to do with the kinds of people who tend to become police officers and then the subconscious drivers behind those choices, rather than the fact that they spend a lot of time on their feet. So how interesting to find that many of the drivers behind plantar fasciitis happen to overlap with the common backgrounds and characteristics of people who are drawn to things like police service. So according to a research article published by Sage Journals, finds that there's partial support for the notion that there are distinct factors that define what has been known to be called the police personality. In the law enforcement profession, certain traits are defined as value orientation specific to law enforcement officers. In layman's speak, that is the organizations that train and employ law enforcement officers have noticed that there are particular qualities that they look for in what makes a good police officer. And so some of those characteristics are bravery, loyalty, authoritarianism, cynicism, suspiciousness, physical courage, self-assertiveness, aggression, distrustfulness, secretiveness, conservatism, dogmatism, and alienation. This is from a study by Bennett and Greenstein in 1975. And some of those things you may think like, wait a minute, how are those good qualities? But there's some of these things, right? How are they good qualities? But it's not necessarily saying that they're good qualities to have as just a general human being. But some of these things can be very good the way that they are exhibited in a law enforcement profession. For instance, let's take being suspicious, where maybe normally we might be like, being suspicious isn't the greatest quality to have, but you could see where that would lend toward being something that would be good to have as a law enforcement officer, right? To be suspicious or maybe even to be cynical. There's a lot of stuff that they see, and if they were to internalize it, that may not be as healthy. So, and again, these are debatable, but these are what the study showed for being personality traits for this police personality. So another police personality trait has been described as a high need for exhibitionism, right? The need to do new and different things. Also argumentativeness, assertiveness, and dominance. And this is from a study by Mahanta and Kathpalia done in 1984. So many of these characteristics that are recognized as police personality are actually, they're not just like born with these things. Those genetics are at play to some degree, right? But as we know, with epigenetics, a lot of that stuff is just trauma that's been passed down or experiences that have been passed down ancestrally to us. But a lot of these things are a result of our early childhood experiences, and those really shape us. Of course, not everyone, or even a significant majority of people who do plantar fasciitis are police officers these days. But what if some of the things that happen in childhood that drive plantar fasciitis are also things that overlap from a character perspective with those who tend toward police work? So let's dive into this. One of the key drivers for plantar fasciitis is being a shock absorber for the people around you. That's the ability to take on big things or witness big, shocking things that would likely be too much to handle for a normal person. So this can be someone who experienced or witnessed a major hardship as a child, something that maybe was unique that you experienced as a child, that you don't know a lot of other people that experienced that same thing as a child. And through that hardship or that experience, you may have felt that you were unable to be protected, or you felt unable to protect your loved ones. And in this particular circumstance, and this left you feeling helpless and trapped. So you subconsciously made a decision that you would never feel helpless in the future. And in that future, that leads to vulnerability issues, right? If you're like, I'm never going to feel trapped, I'm never going to feel helpless, I'm never going to rely on other people because of this maybe tragedy that happened or thing that you witnessed in childhood, or it could have been not just a one-time event, it could have been something that happened over the course of your childhood, like physical abuse or, something like that. And then again, it could have just been maybe the death of a parent, or, the death of a loved one, or some very large accident that you witnessed, some huge event. So in the future, this leads to vulnerability issues. And that is coupled with like an unwillingness or not feeling safe to receive support or help from others. So people often who do plantar fasciitis, they refuse to allow themselves to be taken care of because it makes them feel vulnerable again, like that time in childhood. It's possible that you grew up in a terrifying family environment. This could be because of abuse or traumatic events, or because one of your primary caregivers could have been very controlling, domineering, or authoritarian. In this case, you may have felt controlled or made to feel small, weak, or vulnerable. And that would have been to keep you in line. And without realizing it, you made it your subconscious mission to be bigger, stronger, and more powerful than the person who you perceived controlled you. And this keeps you stuck in a power cycle with the authority figures in your life. You may have grown up in a family where there was a lot of blame or insulting from an authority figure. You may have been the focus of that tirade or that anger, or you may have tried to absorb the slings and arrows being shot at someone that you loved. So if you were a child and had, let's say a father or a mother who was very angry, very explosive, possibly very verbally abusive, but they didn't necessarily do it to you, but they did it to another sibling or they did it to the spouse, then you may have felt the need to try to absorb some of that pain. And so you would have taken that upon yourself. And that would have made you want to be bigger, stronger, more powerful than the person you perceived being the bully or the scary person, the controlling, authoritarian person in your life. You may find that you feel more when you experience negative events, almost as if you draw energy from the negative. You may find that you seek out conflict, drama, fights, or high adrenaline activities to feel alive. Now, that comes from a nervous system alignment as a child or as a young person, where you would get spikes of cortisol or adrenaline or norepinephrine, but these spikes in hormones based on like highly scary or conflict or, different things that happened in childhood. And so that chaos that would happen or ensue, or possibly, you had to deal with a primary caregiver who was volatile and you never knew what was going to happen. And that kind of keeping you on the edge of your feet would have been the only times that you felt connected to your body, because at the other times it would have been you were waiting for the next thing to happen, which means you weren't really inhabiting your body. So every time you'd get those high spikes of something, you'd feel yourself. And so in adulthood, what you're looking to do to come out of some of that dissociation is you seek these things out, not consciously, but you seek conflict and drama and fights and high intensity activities to keep you in alignment with the addiction to the chaos that you experienced in childhood. Deep inside and deeply layered underneath of all of these things, you may fear that you deserve the negative events that happened around you or that are currently happening around you. You fear that maybe you really aren't lovable, so you try to serve and protect instead as a way to earn your place in the world or to earn your love and acceptance. It's possible that maybe you had a father who was strict, stern, harsh. He may have been stubborn and controlling, kind of a my way or the highway mentality. Your mother may have tried to be submissive to this in order to avoid getting in the crosshairs of his anger. And this may have led her to be constantly doing something or staying busy as a way of staying out of his way. And in that sense, you may have learned that may have been a learned trait for you, that you need to be active and stay busy and keep doing things without realizing that that's trying to keep you out of the crosshairs, just like mom did. For people who do plantar fasciitis, you tend to be very hard on yourself. And in turn, you may be hard on others. You like to be in control. And you feel that if people would just listen to you, their lives would be better. And they should do it the way you're telling them to do it, or they should do it your way. Another trait is you may tend to be suspicious of others and look for motives behind the things that they do. You're looking for the strings that are attached or the ulterior motives in people having a relationship with you or people engaging with you. You find it hard to fully trust others, and so you prefer to be in the lead or in control. You have a deep concern for the world around you, and you want to contribute to things getting better or going better. But with that, you often find that you lose yourself in the process. And what that looks like is you tend to get idealistic. You tend to get stuck in your ways, in your beliefs. And as a way of changing the world and having the world be a better place, it needs to look this way, which is your way, for it to do that. And then that becomes that everything wrong with the world is because people are doing it this way. So you have very hard lines between what's right, what's wrong. Things are very black and white to you. When the plantar fasciitis really flares up, it may be communicating that you're unhappy with where you are in life. You may realize that you feel stuck or trapped, but then you're unsure of how to move forward in a different direction. You may be having regret about your choices, but you can't seem to find a way out. You want to be free of all the rules and all the constraints that you've created and that you live by, but you fear making a change. And so these are those, it feels terrible because the plantar fasciitis is, kicking up and you have pain and it feels like every step is hard. But metaphorically, that's what it's trying to tell you, is that you've been walking basically on like this tightrope of the way that things have to be. It's so rigid and it's so constructed and so controlled. And that your feet are trying to tell you that they want to let go. They want to spread out. They want to step a little bit more freely and a little bit more easily. And you might have those moments of clarity, but you fear the change so much because what if it gets worse rather than gets better? And so you, instead of going ahead and diving in and making the change and dealing with some of that uncomfortability in the moment, most people just double down and become a little bit more rigid and more stuck. Another driver is you may have needed more connection with your mother than she was actually even able to give you. And because of this lack of connection, you feel ungrounded and out of step with yourself and the world. In some ways, you continue to seek approval and be the hero in an effort to win back the affection and love that you desperately needed from her when you were a child. And this is just another example of how much our early childhood experiences can shape the trajectory of our lives moving forward. It's easy to see why someone with these drivers would be drawn to some sort of a public service career. But this also makes it difficult for these people to seek help because vulnerability is synonymous with threat. Again, our bodies are so amazing. And with mind change, we never want to remove a coping mechanism that's effectively helping someone deal with what they're carrying subconsciously. But the better option is to go ahead and dig in and remove the offending thoughts, memories, beliefs, and experiences. Then our filters change and our perception expands, and the world can seem less dangerous and toxic. And we can move forward and walk forward with more positivity and less negativity, with more joy and less pain. And things can feel more light and free, and we can stretch into that moving forward. All right, thanks again for joining us on today's episode of the Mind Change Podcast. I look forward to seeing you every other week as we dive into this fascinating topic. And we really appreciate all of you who've left those wonderful 5-star reviews and comments on your preferred listening platform. Please let us know if there's a disease, symptom, or ailment that you would like to hear covered on one of these upcoming episodes. For those of you who are ready to heal now, we have transformational mind change retreats. And really, guys, these are life-changing opportunities to come and join us on a private island off the coast of Belize and get the personalized, intense help that you need. For more information, go to our website at www.mindchange.com and look for our retreats. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Mind Change Podcast, where we are changing the world, one mind at a time.